Okay, hi guys. Thought I would do a short video today going over Ottoman battle formations that might help you in your wargaming. Um, this is kind of a difficult question to work on, because a lot of the historical sources, if you follow my channel, I bring up these chronicles a lot, these manuscripts. The authors, in many cases, especially for the sort of so-called classical period where we have the most manuscripts of about 1453 to like the early 18th century or thereabouts, were usually government secretaries that may be familiar with the army, or might perform sort of other functions like being managing pay or things like that, but weren't really soldiers themselves. So they don't always describe this stuff, is the point. But we do have some chroniclers that do describe some battle formations. Uh, One of these appears in the book Colin, Imber, The Ottoman Empire, The Structure of Power, which is, I think, a pretty good overview for the early modern Ottoman period. Probably the best. Um, I only recently read it, actually. Um, Really good overview, and if you want to get it, it can be found quite inexpensively. But one of the chapters, he goes over Ottoman military formation. This is during the reign of Selim I, Yavuz Sultan Selim. So this is Suleiman's father, um, Selim the Grim, who conquered the Mamluk Sultanate. Um, Most importantly, and he also defeated the Safavids at the Battle of Chaldiran in 1514. Uh, so that kind of inaugurated the long struggle between the Ottoman Empire and the Safavid dynasty in Persia. Um, but Colin Imber's book describes, this is at the Battle of, I believe this is at one of the battles with the Mamluks, but so I made up a little diagram. So in the rear there we have the Sultan himself, Sultan Selim, but that's to represent him with his sort of bodyguard retinue. Would have been the um, Sultan's guard. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So he's in the rear. Although for Selim in particular, he was in fact, despite being positioned at the rear of the army, he was in fact quite known to be involved in the fighting himself. Probably one of the reasons why he died relatively young anyway. Then there's, and the guard would have been most probably mounted. Then we have the blue line, that would have been the Janissaries, the the elite infantry, and at this point in the early 16th century, most of them would have been carrying muskets, probably, and but also armed with swords. And then in front of the Janissaries, there would be gun carts. These would have been in a kind of like the Wagenburg that the Hussites originally developed, and then the Hungarians adopted it in the 15th century, and then the Ottomans picked it up from the Hungarians. So they used that pretty effectively, the Ottomans. It's one of the reasons why, or it's theorized at least, one of the reasons why the Ottomans never really um, used pikes to support their infantry, was because they tended to use this sort of tactic plus support from the cavalry. Then in the front we have the Azabs. So these were the Muslim Turkish Muslim subjects that were called up to serve in the army, um, carrying spears typically, um, and were usually the kind of cannon fodder, unfortunately, or night fodder, or whatever the case may be. At the Battle of Nicopolis, for example, in 1396, the Crusaders made a big mistake, and the Hungarian king, being pretty good at fighting Ottomans and knowing them well, said, "Don't do this," but the other Crusaders didn't listen to him, so the Crusading Knights crashed into this line of Azabs, and then the Janissaries pushed forward and kind of locked the Knights into combat. And that's pretty much the reason why that battle was a big disaster for the Crusaders, unfortunately for them. Anyway, but that was kind of their function, to be sort of expendable infantry. Now, I will use this opportunity to say a lot of war game books and Ottoman army lists retain Azabs well beyond when they would have been used, well into the 18th century. That's not really, they were not really used that late. Um, Even by the late 16th, early 17th centuries, you don't really see as many Azabs being used in the army, um, or at least not in any major capacity. Most of the big Ottoman armies at that time, especially during the long Turkish war with the Habsburgs, they tended to use Sekban, these would have been musketeers, as a kind of line infantry in addition to the Janissaries and the cavalry. Okay, then these we have two types of cavalry. So in the back, in the kind of pink color flanking the Janissaries, we have the Kapakulu Spahi. These would have been the palace cavalry. So there's six standing regiments of household, kind of, you could use the term household cavalry. And according to Dr. Imber's book, they would have lined up on either side of the Janissaries, and obviously protecting the flanks of the Sultan. Um, then in front of them uh, would be the various Timariates, and if there were Tatar auxiliaries, they would have also been filling in kind of the gaps. Um, and you can kind of see how the Ottoman, um, just from this battle deployment, how they liked to fight. It didn't always work out this way, but as I mentioned with Nicopolis, the idea was to draw the enemy into the center, um, get them stuck, either pinned like from musketry and artillery, or even just fighting hand to hand with the Azabs, and then you would encircle them with the cavalry, kind of like a crescent moon type formation. Um, Interestingly, by the 18th century, you have some reformist type writers, um, like Ibrahim Mutafarika, who I've mentioned on this channel before, interesting guy, saying how we need to get away from this idea of encircling and destroying the army, because this he's writing in the um, 1730s or thereabouts, that the Europeans have adopted these kind of linear tactics. Um, what we're doing doesn't quite work the same way. So, so um, Mutafarika proposes this, that we need to change our tactics. But at any rate, in the 16th century, when this is the normative kind of formation, that's what um, they like to do. They like to um, form up like this. But in the 16th century, the Ottomans don't really fight that many big land battles. If there are kind of land engagements, it's usually between like smaller regional armies attacking kind of Habsburg garrisons. Most of the kind of field battles take place, especially in the east with the Safavids, not so much with the Habsburgs or the Venetians. Most of the combat is done through besieging positions. Um, we also have this interesting. I think I've made a video about this before, but we have this interesting illustration. This is with one of the battles between the Ottomans and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in the late 17th century, excuse me. And this is the Ottoman side, and we can see we've got the kind of Kapakulu or Tamariets. I'm not sure what's being depicted here. And then we have a lot of probably Tatars around them. You can also see the camels. So they had a lot of camels on campaign as pack animals. I mean, it's pretty. They're good for that. A lot of Tatars. And this is the key here, but we can see the kind of different formations here, mostly cavalry in this depiction. So number 13, we have the Tatar army, very flowing, no kind of formation, strict formation. And, that was the Tatar strength, and, it's kind of the traditional characterization of these nomadic horse archers, the flowing maneuvers, and, goes back to the Roman period, the Parthian shot, that you can't get a fix on them. But we can see here, at least the way this illustrator has depicted it, these other Ottoman cavalry are formed in pretty kind of linear formations. Kind of makes sense given that they would be carrying lances and other weapons kind of like that, to perform like a shock roll, shock and fire. So that's a better kind of more period depiction. I wanted to just share that as well. But this is how they would have formed. This is how they formed up during the reign of Selim. So this is a very useful description, and I'll wrap it up there. I don't have much more to add, and hope this is helpful either for your wargaming or just historical interest. And I've done a few other videos like this, not so much just formations, but I've made a video on different Ottoman orders of battle that I've been able to find, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I hope you've liked the video, and if you have any questions or suggestions for another video, let me know in the comments. Thank you.